2000, and we're in Sterling, Colorado, and today we have with us a World War II veteran in aviation, a flyer, Arol Hoppe, and he's going to tell us about his experiences in World War II as a flyer and what happened to him before and after, and all of that good stuff. So we'll now turn to him to tell us about his experiences. See the little red light where it's on there while we're ready to go.
Okay, I'm a double A Hoppe, Arol Hoppe, and it was a long old war. It started 7 days before Pearl Harbor. I got drafted December the 2nd. Got drafted into the Army, went to Denver, and I was okay to be a soldier. And we got shipped to El Paso, Texas, to be classified. Whether it was going to go over here, the Air Corps at that time. I was lucky enough to get in the Air Corps. I think it was because I already had a private license. And we got that here in Sterling for $8. You could get a private license. Anyway, got in the Air Corps and got shipped to San Antonio, Texas. I was crewing on a navigation squadron, AT-11, making $21 a month.
Now what's an AT-11, Arol?
That's a twin-engine navigation trainer.
Okay, pretty good sized airplane.
Yeah, not a big airplane, but it was a trainer.
Uh-huh.
Well, for 21 a month, I kind of messed off. Anyway, the first 7th the best. I was a draftee and he was a regular Army. And finally shipped me down there and I pulled guard duty for about 6 weeks. And you couldn't get in flying school because you had to have 2 years of college. Bullet come out that if you went down and took this test, you could get in the cadets. Well, we didn't have anything to lose, so I passed there on at Kelly Field, took my ground school training, then went through primary in Bonham, Texas, Waco, Texas, took basic.
Now, when
you could get
flying, what kind of airplanes did you fly? Do you remember?
That in primary we had that PT-17.
Oh yeah.
And then in basic we had that old vibrating Vultee, BT-13. And then went to twin engine. Boy, I was going to get to fly P-38s. That was the height that was going to be advanced in twin engine. And there's one day a deal come out on the bulletin board. Anybody that wanted to, after got graduated, you could fly P-38 photography in Colorado Springs, get your transition. Well, put the name on the list. That's the last I heard of that. Graduated out of Lubbock. That's where we went to advanced. Those was AT-7s, I think they called them. I don't know who made them or anything. Got it. Instead of going to P-38 fighter planes, we got shipped to Austin, Texas, and was truck drivers. Took transition in C-47s.
That's a cargo type plane.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, that's the old airline plane.
Right.
So it took her 6 weeks to transition, and I got to stay as an instructor. And that was a good deal. I was there in Austin about 1.5 years instructing. You learn more about flying there as an instructor than you ever did. So we lived there in Austin, I imagine it was 1.5 years, I don't remember. Then got,
Were you married then?
yeah.
How old were you?
Well, about 21 or 22.
Okay.
Yeah, I got married before the war. Before I got in the Army. My wife, you knew her, she
Yeah.
was a nurse.
Yeah,
she
right.
was in nurse's training. She couldn't be in nurse's training and be married, but you know, it wouldn't wait, so we run off and got married. And
Where was she training?
where was she training?
Uh-huh.
At Children's Hospital
Oh, here in
in
Denver.
Denver.
Okay.
Well, finally got orders. Things was getting pretty rough over there. Well, during this time, I had the Battle of the Bulge over there, and we was losing ground. And my folks come down for Christmas that year. We just ready to sit down to eat dinner in the field, report the field immediately. Well, they had all these kids that was in the Army, just got in, and they were shipping them overseas, and they had to give them leave before they went over. And we went down to Camp Hood and picked our guys up, and nobody knew what the score was. And our destination was Great Falls, Montana. And the weather was stinking bad. And we took off from Camp Hood down there, 1 minute intervals up in that soup to clear 500 on top. Well, we was going to go to Denver, but Denver was closed up. We couldn't get in there to stay for the night. So we thought, well, we'll go to El Paso. Well, all these guys going to California, they went to El Paso too, and that was full time we got there, so we cleared on into Albuquerque. Never been into Albuquerque. It got up between the ridge of mountains, and it started to blizzard and snow, and our navigation equipment at that time wasn't the best. We had that ADF needle, and it was just going around in circles.
Spinning.
Radio buzzing, and so we went up to instrument altitude, and we flew, and the time was about up, and we got that old instrument letdown deal, and with the did-dah and the dah-dit. Boy, we got over Albuquerque and looked down, and there the lights was a-shining.
See a hole in there.
Oh, God, that was nice. We got in there about midnight, and that's where we had our Christmas dinner, about midnight.
So you had a plane load of inductees or new soldiers,
Yeah.
like you trying to deliver them somewhere.
Well, we was going to
Great Falls.
Great Falls so they'd have a leave.
Yeah.
And we had to, the next day we
How many people in the plane, roughly?
must have been about 35.
Okay.
And the next day, well, we landed at Cheyenne. We kind of figured out what the score was by that time. Well, a bunch of my guys, they was going to Billings and the rest to Great Falls. But we couldn't, we asked them if we could land at Billings and let those guys out. No, no way. And we had two numbers after we got there to Great Falls at Washington, D.C. to call for further orders. So we got up to Great Falls and we called this first number. And they didn't know what the hell was going on. We called the next one. They didn't either. And just wait for further orders.
Yeah.
So we got those. There's 3 planes of us went up there, and we got all the guys going back to Billings. It was only 30 minutes back there. We put them all on my plane. I took off, and we went down to Billings and opened the door and dumped them off. And I took off and went back there. Nobody ever said a word about it. Yeah. There we was in Great Falls. Cold, oh God, it was cold up there. Just for a week. We sat up there for a week. One day, load your passengers up and go to Washington, D.C., the port of embarkation. So it took us a day to get those planes running again, sitting out in the cold. Well, by that time, we knew what those kids, they wasn't very anxious to get. So we they was all getting together up at Denver. We landed up there and got some fuel. And where were we going to spend New Year's Eve? Well, Kansas City would be a good place. So we all kind of got together, and God, everybody else, they went to Kansas City to spend. So they sent us up to a little airfield, and we dumped our troops back and took all the pilots and stuff. We went back to Kansas City, spent the night there, didn't sleep. Next day we made Washington, D.C. Got in there and it was dark. My God, you never saw such a crowd of people as sleeping on the hangar floors, and that wasn't any place to spend the night. So we went back to Richmond, Virginia, and we spent the night there. Made it back to Austin the next day. Well, that's just one of the incidents there happened. Anyway, we went overseas. We didn't know, we left Sacramento, flew over to Hawaii. We put cabin tanks in. By that time, we had C-46s. We transferred over to 46s. And had cabin tanks in there. We made it into Hawaii. Low RPM and low, so you'd get...
Stretcher forever.
Yeah.
Right.
Then we had a navigator going over there. All he did was just get us over there, and then he come back. Well, we wasn't in any hurry to get where we was going. Then we got to Hawaii, and there was a general. He went down in the ocean somewhere. We went over to Johnston Island, just a little old island over there. We searched for him for about a week, and that poor navigator, well, going over, he was supposed, and there's 2 homing ships between here and Hawaii that you could home in on. He'd go back there and go to sleep, and we'd get him up. We didn't know where it was at, shoot the stars. We didn't get along with our navigator very good. Anyway, we ended up in Finch Haven, New Guinea. That was our destination. What a place. Disease and bugs and mosquitoes, malaria.
Finch Haven's on the
south end.
On the south end?
Yeah,
okay.
Down.
Yeah, okay. Kind of the south west, yeah.
And We flew up and down the Markham Valley. That was a little old valley there, about 20 miles wide. And the cooney grass grew just about 20 foot tall, just thick. That's what they called it. And there's C-47 shot. There's Japs on one ridge and Aussies on the other. And those C-47s had been shot down there, laying all over. We got over there and they says, you just fly over the top of the cooney grass and you're all right. And that's where you flew, not over 100 foot, just over the top of that.
Fly it
We
down.
never lost a damn plane while I was there. And I was there about, at Finch Haven, we just got in there in about 2 days. Boy, the old wheel wanted to see me, the big shot. I thought, well, I'd messed up somewhere. Went to see him. It was on my record. We used to snatch gliders. They had a hook down there, and you'd fly. They'd
Put them between two poles.
yeah, and see, I'd snatched gliders. There was one up in the cooney grass up there that went down, and we went up there. They had a plane there with a winch in and everything, and boy, they had the cooney grass all chopped out and the poles up with a rope on it. We made one pass and we got him. Took him back to Finch Haven, dumped him out. I don't know who they were or what, but we got him out of there. Well, then we moved up to Hollandia for 2 weeks. That's along the coast up there. We built MacArthur's castle up there on the hill, kind of stopped the war for a while, and built him a big old shack up there. I kind of lost my respect for him about that time. Then we went up to Biak, a little old.
What was that? What was that? I heard that he had a piano in there and everything.
I don't know what
You-
was
you
in
know,
it.
okay.
It was a big
Okay.
place up on top
Yeah.
of that hill. Anyway, then we moved up to Biak. That was a little island off the coast of New Guinea up on the north end. We always went in right behind the infantry. We hauled a lot of wounded and out. Anyway, we got in there and we just got settled that night, and about a mile up the road was another squadron. And here a damn little old kamikaze plane Jap come in there and flew right in the mess hall while they was eating. That kind of made you think.
Wow, it crashed right into it.
Right into it. Just, I don't know how many that got.
In your squadron. In
But-
your squadron.
No, that was another.
Oh, the
another
squadron up the road.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was another squadron.
But close by.
About a mile.
Yeah, well, that's close enough.
You saw the smoke.
Right.
Then we moved up to a little old strip on Lady, Tanawan strip on Lady. We flew off of there for quite a while.
Ladies in the Philippines.
Yeah, we got up in the Philippines.
Right.
And that was a Jap strip. And they never did make any strip into the wind. It was always crosswind. And this one, it was right along the beach. And there was a little old, about a 500-foot volcanic peak at one end of it. So you always landed into the peak and you took off over the water. And I come in, we go up there to Quezon City. That's where we picked up a lot of patients. We had nurses then too, when we hauled patients. Anyway, this Quezon City was just a highway, and there was a traffic circle up there. You'd go up there and you'd pick your patients up on the traffic circle and take off the other way. You could only keep them up, some of them, so many minutes or hours. Well, we come back one day.
What altitude did you fly?
Altitude,
Yeah.
There was certain altitudes you had to fly with patients.
Yeah,
You couldn't-
right.
I don't remember what altitude we flew with.
Probably less than 10,000. Huh?
Oh yeah, it was less than 10.
Yeah.
Well, we come back one day to 10-1, and here was a little old rain shower just hung on the water side of the runway. And we come in there, and we made one pass, and you couldn't see nothing where the runway was. So we flew around out there waiting for that to get out of there. Our time was up for the patients. We used to come in, you'd haul it, when we was instructors, those old 46s, we used to show them the glide angle. First day, you'd show them the characteristics of the plane and all this. You'd show them the glide angle, and you could come in right over the end of the runway at 500 foot, and just before it stalled out, dump full flaps, and you could just nose right down.
Drop it in.
Yeah. They'd squirm around there. So I asked the tower if we could come in over the hump. Well, they'd have to find out. Well, we do it at our own risk. So we come in over that little old 500 peak. Yeah, we had a lot of runway left. Anyway, then we went on we moved up to Clark Field, up above Manila. And we was there quite a while. And that's when we went over to this LIPA, and they sent all these old boys over, paratroopers that didn't even have their qualifying jumps.
Wow. Is that right?
Yeah, and that's all we did for a week over there. Just pick up a load, go around this field at 500 foot and dump them out.
At 500 feet?
Yeah, that's what you dumped them out at.
Wow, that's not very high for a jump, is it?
Well, that's what you...
That's what they did, isn't it?
Yeah. And then we went over there and we pulled gliders, double toe gliders full of troops and the plane full. It was a hell of a load. And you knew what was coming.
Right.
It was getting ready to go into Japan.
Right. Attack
And
Japan.
I was about ready to go on sick call because I knew what happened over in France over there.
Right.
Well, anyway, we finally moved, and we went up to Aishima, a little island off of Okinawa. And boy, here a typhoon come. Just cleaned Noah, tipped our plane over, the one I took over, bottom side up.
Wow.
So they got some more planes in. We was hauling rations from the Philippines up to Okinawa because they didn't have anything to eat up there. And we was living on the airplane. We had our cots on there. A lot of those rations got broken. There was some good stuff in there, fruit cake and cocoa, you know.
Yeah,
and,
sure.
And we had a bunch of that stashed sugar in the back of the airplane. So we just kind of stayed on the airplane. And that one day was going back Clark Field, and after they dropped the first bomb there, the bombs, war was going to end. So we made it back to Clark Field, and things ended. Well, to hell with flying the next day. And things went pretty good till about 10, 11 o'clock the next morning. And then the beer bottles started flying around the tents, you know. That was worse than the war.
Everybody was racing hell, huh?
So we made it back to Aishima the next day.
So, let me say, so so you were in the Air Force or Air Corps all this time, flying these transports and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, and how old were you by this time?
Well, from
About.
40, I was probably 25 in there,
Yeah.
26.
And what was your rank? What were you, captain or something like that?
Well, I was a first Louis, and then after I got to be instructor down there in Austin, I was a second one. Then I got up to be a first, and that's what I was till I got out. And I made captain because of the length of time I was a
Sure.
first.
Sure.
That first, that's a good grade. You don't have to take the crap of a second Louis, and you haven't got the responsibility of a captain. You just kind of
happy medium,
happy medium in there.
Okay. So
Well, we went back up to Ashima, and hell, our squadron, everybody was gone. They'd moved up to Okinawa. So we gets in the plane, we motors up to Okinawa, and they was getting ready to go in Japan the next day. There's some fighter planes going in, and so we hauled gas in, went into Tachikawa. We took a load of gas in for the fighter planes.
Tachikawa's in Japan.
Yeah, it was about 40 miles from Tokyo or something like that.
How long was it time-wise from where you took off to get there?
Iwo Jima?
Yeah, where have you?
Oh, I imagine 3 hours.
Iwo Jima or Okinawa?
Huh?
Iwo Jima or Okinawa?
Iwo Jima is where we hauled the gas from.
Okay. So how long was that hop over to Japan?
Oh.
About like hour and a half, 2 hours?
Yeah, a couple hours.
Yeah. Okay, that's all right.
That was an experience going in there to Japan. We took the squadron doctor. Talk about doctors. He was a character. He was from Brooklyn, old Doc Stander. He had this little old Japan. I'm an American doctor. I'm here to help you. Anyway, we got into Japan there. Those people were just scared to death of us. You'd go in a building and you'd just see them going out the other
Scary,
end.
yeah.
So we finally corralled 3 little Jap gals. They was in some kind of a sewing deal, that sewing machine. So we give them a physical there, old Doc Standard, and did our public relations, and then we moved up to Tachikawa, and then I was there after the war ended till December before we got to go home. There's no transportation. We flew over, but we couldn't fly home.
You had to take a ship home.
That's why I never did like cruises. I took that damn slow boat home from Japan.
That was enough.
That was my cruise for the lifetime.
So then you left Japan and you got back home here about when?
We was going to make it by Christmas. Lee, you knew Lee Grosser, didn't you?
Yes, I knew Lee, sure.
Well, anyway, going over when we was searching for this general, he was flying B-25s. He was searching for the general too. I saw one morning was getting ready to take off, and I met Lee out there. And all you got to do is, how do you do, and goodbye, you know.
Sure.
So when got to come home, we had this big old building there, and each state had a corner to go in. And went over to Colorado, and here was old Lee. So we come home together on that.
On that ship, huh?
On that ship. And we was going to make it by Christmas. Well, we was in Seattle. We got to Seattle by Christmas, but we couldn't, there's no transportation home. So Christmas we was downtown helling around, and we got in some office party. So we spent Christmas Eve with the some personnel there. You had to be careful there. Those Navy guys was mean to us.
The Navy, yeah, were they?
Oh, they. So we finally, one night, we got orders as a train leaving. Well, it was one of those trains with the lanterns hanging up in the top yet.
Wow, that old, huh?
Oh, it was and anyway, old straight back seats, and it stopped every little town set there. Well, we had our air mattresses and sleeping bags, and so we spent one night on there, and it stopped right next to a lumber yard. And old Lee and I, we went in, and it wasn't crowded. There was a lot of seats there. Old Lee and I went in, we bought us some footboards, and we laid across the back of those seats and got our air mattresses up. And we slept on the way home then. But it was after we didn't make it home for Christmas. Then it was in February the 16th I got out. So that's some of the experiences.
Where were you discharged? Here in Denver or someplace like Fort Logan or something?
Fort Logan,
yeah. That's where a lot of guys came out, yeah.
Oh, I got at the end there, I got some time in a DC-4, that's a 4-engine.
Yeah.
And I got about 10 hours of co-pilot time in that. And the nicest plane flew was B-25. We flew B-25 solo from Clark Field, some little old strip out in the jungle. They took the Bombay and we was hauling bombs in there, and we'd go over there and unload them, and it was only about an hour trip. You'd make about 6, 7 trips a day.
Is that right?
And we flew them solo. They never, those old B-25s had that 50 millimeter cannon out the nose, and it recoiled right back at the co-pilot. They used to say that just would shake the old rivets out of it. And I always wanted to shoot that baby.
Fire it off a few times, huh?
But they never did give me any ammunition.
What was, did you get any medals or citations? You sure
Well, I
had.
was lucky and got a good conduct medal.
Yeah. You had area citations,
Yeah,
and theater
the
citations.
Philippine liberation
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
stuff like. No, nothing.
Nothing like the Naval Air
No,
Cross and all that
no.
crazy stuff. How about, you didn't get wounded?
No.
You were lucky,
no.
huh? Didn't get, okay.
Never did have anything to shoot. Well, we had one of those grease gun machine guns. That's what we had for armament. I don't know if you ever saw one or not.
What was the most hairy thing? Were you ever attacked by the Japanese, or would fighters ever attack you guys?
No, when we was hauling those bombs, there's Japs, and they'd give us a red alert, and you'd go down some valley and you'd fly around until they give you the clear, and then you'd come in and you'd land. But no, we got escorted into, they thought we was, I don't know, somebody messed up and we didn't get the right code one day. And we was going into Okinawa, and boy, here a couple of American fighter planes come up on each side, and they escorted us down, and we got the old 1-2 when we got on the ground.
Oh, because you didn't have identification, huh?
Well, something on the radio had this, that they didn't
like, huh?
didn't lock in that morning or something. I don't know what it was.
Yeah. Now, so your wife was a nurse, and I knew her. She was terrific. And she was training here at Children's and stuff like that, and she stayed here during the war, or was she in the service?
Oh, no, no, after she graduated, she come down to, while I was advanced at Lubbock, she come down there, Lubbock, when I was down there. Then she stayed down there at Austin all the while.
All the time?
Yeah.
Worked down there?
Yeah. Then, when we come home here, well, I was going to get shipped overseas. Well, she didn't want to live with her folks or my folks. So I had to leave a week. We come back, well, we looked for a house. Well, there's 2 houses in Sterling for sale.
Yeah.
And one was over on Beach Street. It was shot, and you couldn't get anybody to fix them. And the other one was there, 127 Columbine. Oh, Harold married Sherwin. Harold,
127 Columbine.
that little square house. Worked at Stickney's. Anyway, it was only about 2 years old, and they wanted $6,500 for it. Well, we didn't have
The pot or the window, huh?
That's right. You said it. And we went to get down payment. We wasn't my fault. Anybody that paid that much for a house was out of their mind. Her folks wouldn't get that. Was outrageous. So I had a 41 Chevy car, and the payments on that house was $31 a month.
Okay.
Insurance and everything. So we mortgaged the old Chevy car to get a down payment and bought the house over there.
Who loaned you the money for that? On the car?
Mabry Agency.
Oh, Barney Mabry.
Yeah.
You mortgaged the car or borrowed on the car and made the down payment on the house, huh?
Haven't been out of debt since.
Yeah, right. I know the feeling. Well, that's okay. So then your wife stayed here while you were overseas.
Oh, yeah, yeah. She worked up there at Good Samaritan
Yeah, did see
quite
her.
a bit.
Yeah. Well, they probably needed her. You know, I suspect people like that were in low supply. Okay, so, and then you came back, and then what happened to you? Because you've been farming and stuff.
That was the biggest mistake I made in my life.
Coming back.
I couldn't get back to that farm quick enough. And I could have went into commercial airlines. A lot of the boys did.
Yeah.
Flew commercial
Yeah.
airlines right
Yeah,
out.
the hours. How many hours did you have flying? Do you get any idea?
I've got, in all my log books and stuff, I lack about 40 hours of having 10,000.
10,000 hours. Jesus, you know, that's tremendous. 10,000 hours.
Well, when we was instructing down there, we used to get in 10 hours a day. We'd fly every other day. You'd get 10 hours, and the next day you'd get 5. You'd take 5 students up.
Yeah.
And you flew, one day you'd fly in the morning, and then that day you'd fly at night. And the next day you'd fly in the afternoon, 5 hours. Well, you rack up a bunch of hours.
Oh, yeah.
And you're a dragon, too, after you fly 10. When you're shooting landings with students for 10 hours.
I know. Yeah. Pounding those babies into the ground.
Yeah.
So sure.
I'll tell you about one student. Well, he wasn't a regular student. He couldn't get along with other instructors, and so I got him one day. He was a Moore. I'll never forget him. Moore. He was a St. Louis cop. He was one of the hottest pilots around, to hear him tell it. So one day he went out to we was waiting to take off, and the old boy ahead of us come in, just greased her in, hit me up. Typical Moore landing, wasn't it? I don't know what was, anyway, I said, we're going to shoot landings today. And I messed him up, and the first landing we come in, I bet we bounced 100 foot high. I said, now there's a typical Moore landing. And, you know, you'd come in, and if you didn't lock the gear or something, the red light would come and the horn would blow, and I chewed him that day. He turned me in.
He turned you in.
Yeah. And I don't know where he ever went, but I never got him again, and whether he ever got through or not. But that was one of the...
He was not too swift.
No. Then one of my students got overseas, and he was over there. He ditched two of them and got out of both times. He said one of them floated about 45 minutes. He said the other one, it was about full of fuel. It only
sank like a rock.
Yeah. Well, he was out there on the water all night, one night, before they picked him up. Well, another little experience that kind of made you wonder. One was on Tenawan Strip, there where the peak was. We took off one morning, air freight. They seemed to load those planes, whether it was feathers or lead, you filled them full. We had a hell of a load on that morning. Took off and just got the gear up, and one engine went dead.
Oh,
just
Jesus.
Quit. Here he was about this ceiling off the water. So we feathered the prop, and we flew out there, and I told him, better call Air Sea Rescue. And boy, you know, you don't turn into that dead engine. And I don't know, it seemed forever. We had that old throttle bent clear over the pedestal.
I'll bet. Giving her all you got.
We flew out there, and finally we made a big old
Flat,
turn.
easy turn, yeah.
Come back, and we landed. And we never did get high enough to unfeather that prop to see if it had run or not. Because that drags, you know, that whirling prop really drags out there.
Windmills. Huh?
And we come back and started that baby up and run it up, and it run, so we turned around, took off again,
Is that
never
right?
missed the crack.
What do you suppose happened? You never knew.
I don't know what.
Yeah. No, that's bizarre, and it's stuff like that.
But those old C-46s wasn't near as good an airplane as that 47.
Is that right?
Not dependable.
Well, you want me to take some pictures of the photos?
Yeah, take some pictures of his photos and stuff like that.
What year do you think that was? Out at Crowson Field, probably 42 maybe?
What?
Was that 42, the year? On this photo?
Year?
Mm-hmm.
No, it was before that.
Oh.
That must have been about, I don't know if it gives a date. No. Because I went in the Army in 41.
Oh, that's right. Oh, yeah. Was this taken just last year?
Just this spring.
Oh, okay. Let's see, Milo Whitcomb, Harry Bostrom, Stan Gwenzy. Who's the other gentleman next to Stan Gwenzy? In the front row.
Can I turn it over?
So next to Stan is Meyerholtz, Mr. Meyerholtz.
This is Meyerholtz. That's Chesley Harris, the
And the back row then would be
Hamlin.
on the right.
Yeah,
And then Chesley Harris, and then Arol Hoppe, and
Bryson Van
Bryce
Gundy.
Van Gundy. Yeah. Did you guys all train together out at Crowson Field?
No, these was old, they was all in different,
Classes.
different parts of the Air Force.
Oh, You'll have to tell me what that one is, the top one.
That's a C-47.
Okay.
I think that one there is that's a converted airliner, a DC-3 they called it, because they had some of those there, because it had the windows in.
Right. And then the one below it?
A C-46.
Austin. And what year would that have been?
That was probably about in 42, 43.
Is that Patch from the squadron?
This what?
The Patch from the squadron?
That was the 5th Air Force.
Oh. And then the photo at the bottom down here with the two guys in front of the plane.
That was the instructors out here at Sterling, Leo Chevrolet and Sylvester Dragoni. He was a Puerto Rican.
Huh. And that would have been about 1940?
Probably in there.